Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of Golarion, the setting of the Pathfinder role-playing game system? I hope you are, because if you are, take my hand. Your guide here, Cantus Narrative, will draw you through the gate, draw you through the universe to Golarion once more. Going to Garund and the Mwangi Expanse to visit the city-state, Kibwe. So if you're ready, hold on to my hand. I'm opening the gate. Of course, remember to do a little bit of things to support your host and guide here. Liking, subscribing, and the bell. Leaving a comment over on the YouTube side. As we travel through the gate and arrive once more in Golarion. We're in Grund, Mwangi Expanse, Kibwe. An interesting city-state, a walled place that's both a mining town and a trade city, with people from all over the Mwangi Expanse. Non-humans, human people. It is on the eastern edge of the jungle, near the Niddle Gap. We're going to be diving into it and learning a bit more, but after we're done here, there are some books I can look at. Actually, there's a bunch of books you can look into. Heart of the Jungle is a good one to look into. It'll give you some information there. Of course, The Slithering deals with something we will talk about. The Slithering, it's part of its history. It's an adventure that deals with a problem happens. From 2nd edition, the World Guide's a good one. Also, the Travel Guide and the Mwangi Expanse book all provide a lot of information that puts together the picture that is Kibwe. But what is Kibwe? What do we know about it? Well, it's known as the City of Watchers. We'll talk about why. It's a large town, and it's surprisingly small population, you'd say. It is around, now, 5,000 people, but that's like 4,000 normal people and like 1,000 traders. People that are going on trade and stuff like that. And it is mostly human, predominantly Zenji of descent, but there are lots of humans that are there. It's ruled over by a representative council, and it doesn't really see, just like some city-states, any territory outside of its own region. And it has been independent for some time, large amount of time, since a old empire in the region fell. We'll have to talk about that in space. Yeah. So, this is a map of Kibwe. There are several neighborhoods and camps organized around ethnic groups, belief systems, national origin. Mazumba camp, refugees are from the Saro and the Wamadu camp. There's the Strangle Book, the Here Block, the Here People. Baptist Consortium are in the city as well. The city is known for its massive granite walls that slope inward and strengthened by countless runes to ensure that there really hasn't been a serious threat by the jungle ever. It's got deep wells that never failed. It's known for its soapstone sculptures and idols of animalistic humanoid shapes, known as the Pillar Watchers, that are all around the city, that look down from these tall pillars. Hence the City of Watchers. They're also used as navigational landmarks if you're looking around. And there are stories that they would come to the defense of the city if they ever need to. There's places like the Walk of Shrines, a gold refinery, the Adexu Pavilion, that's a civic center and a place of public debate. There are lots of things, and a lot of people from all over the Expanse. That, in a nutshell, is Kibwe. We are going to go more into depth about some of these places, but that's kind of the picture I'm kind of putting there. That if you're coming from any ethnicity, nationality, species of the Expanse, you're probably going to find some kind of small enclave there that you can connect up with. And a lot of those walls and glyphs are barriers between the different neighborhoods. They kind of make an infrastructure. And if you're from the city, you know the barriers. You know if you're going to an area, maybe you're dealing with people doing with architecture, fashion, attitude. Those things also help divide the different regions. So let's talk about the 10 main neighborhoods, because it does give you an idea. The Kir Block is near the western gate, and was the center of the slave market. Hey, basically slavery was always illegal in Kibwe, but the trade of slaves was not until recently. We'll talk about it again in its history, but that's a recent change that now you couldn't even sell slaves here. Before, slave taking and that kind of thing, outlawed in the region. But if you came in with them and sold them there, but now it's completely out. Basically, the same freedom-loving abolitionists they've gotten to the point in time where they're like, yeah, no, we're done with it. It's part of the entire thing. So slavery's outlawed completely. And the Bakirs are left leaving room for new residents and refugees. A lot of them have. Newcomers of the neighborhood look at the former Bakir slave traders in a little ways. But Bakir also haven't necessarily left. Also, because they've turned their business into hired labor. With implied threat of violent crime. At least some sinister things. So, yeah. It's... The people of that neighborhood, they've got their own culture. But, of course, the gate master there, because it is one of the two main gates, has formal position of keeping the gates in good repair and streets clean for traders. And the dude, the person who's behind that, the man behind that, claims to be impartial in conflicts between the older Bakirs and the new settlers who have replaced the old slave traders who don't come here anymore. But, he's also connected with a lot of criminals. The Brass Block was once the wealthiest of districts. But when the Aspers Consortium came in, another big trade consortium from around the entire Inner Sea region, they bought several manors for low prices that seemed very suspicious and formed a sprawling headquarters. They demolished the manors, made room for housing for company employees, working-class citizens, places they could afford. Most residents are happy to have new homes and modern conveniences, including brass plumbing, which the place is named for. But yeah, and for the most part, they don't mind the consortium, but there are probably a couple of wealthy families in the area that would give them a look of like, that seems underhanded. Wamandu, the northern neighborhood, named after the abolitionist who donated his house to former slaves and homeless exiles, is the beacon of hope. They're proud of the principles of the founder, the person that was named after, and the people of the neighborhood look after each other. It's a secret directive that we have. Kind of kindness, too. Admant Nidlo Bumandu shares his great-great-grandmother's drive to aid the downtrodden, and is an influential position as gate master of the northern gate. And he funnels that generous income back into the neighborhood. The central market. Hey, if you're going to think of this place, you think of the central market. People across the world, if you think of Kibwe, you think of this place here. Merchant stalls, caravans. This is the heart of Kibwe. And it's true. Permanent structures are banned in the central market, and a few exceptions are made for generation-old trading houses at the fringes. It consists of ever-shifting maze of hanging tapestries, thick rugs, curling smoke. It gives the illusion of private shops, for the convenience of nearly having anything unimaginable at hand. The schedule which shops need to relocate and when is extraordinarily complicated, and the city's pre-appointed market masters set these timetables, basically. So, yeah. The Iwisa block is a vision of Kibwe in miniature. Interestingly enough. The crowded block is a triangle of streets and structures just east of the northern gate. Most traders come through the gate, stop here for services before moving to the central market to set up their shops. Which traders who desire a more permanent shop, or who want to avoid the central market's crowds, often operate out of Iwisa block instead. So no ethnicity dominates the block, which is a point of pride for the residents. Important positions in the neighborhood are filled with democratic elections, and multiple people are always campaigning in busy streets. The miners' camp. This is where the East Mwangi Mining Company has a fixture in Kibwe, a major group in the east here. As long as gold has been found in the nearby hills, it supplies housing for the workers. Basically, the jungles are too close to the mines to have safe places to camp. So the company purchased a swath of property just south of the Central Market. Rows upon rows of nearly identical mud and thatch homes fill the neighborhood. Very few are owned by the residents. Most are instead owned by the company, and rented to miners at high fees deducted directly from their pay. Some of the buildings here provide support for miners, such as company shops, company doctors, who work for scrip. Most residents can barely afford to visit anywhere else in the city. Yep. Mozimba, basically, because the lands outside of Kibwe are tended by Zenji farmers and herders. Still, it's the Mwangi Expanse. Jungles are dangerous, and many Zenji live inside the city, in the Mozimba neighborhood. So, you might tend to fields outside, but you live here. So, people live as you need to do outside the city walls, in round wooden huts with thatched roof, clustered around water sources, irrigated from the city's well, ample green space around them, chicken pens, sometimes cattle is common, and the sounds of animals will be in the neighborhood. They work the orchards, the small farms outside the city walls, and prefer the easy walk into the city each night, just as many operate food stalls and artisan shops within the neighborhood. So basically, maybe your entire thing is operating a small stall, in the neighborhood after the people get back from working in the fields. It's known for its beautiful parks, slow pace, but it is also fools outsiders with a pastoral appearance. They're also shrewd negotiators, a skill which skilled guides and hunters from this group are highly regarded. So if you need a guide or a specific hunter to help you out in the Expanse, go to the Mozimba. Straggleback is the poorest neighborhood. It's the southern point, hemmed in between the ministry of the tightly packed homes of miners' camps and the beauty of the wall of shrines. The most desperate and destitute of the population live here, in dilapidated hovels of wood and mud. It lacks law enforcement at best, so criminals from elsewhere in the city will kind of go here. It nominates a mostly powerful beggar prince to the representative council, the leading government here. I haven't really talked about that. Yes. The Wall of Shrines is named for the most infamous street which runs through the neighborhood. It's where the churches, shrines, and related buildings are. There are several deities familiar throughout the Inner Sea, worshipped here: Caden Kalian, Desna, Gozera, but there are also churches that are dedicated to a dizzying array of honored ancestry, animal spirits, genus loci. The border between that and Stranglebach is a venerated wall of church-sponsored soup kitchens, food banks, and flop houses. And of course, White Marks is a neighborhood consisting of Ikuj elves, and a few non-elves who agree to follow their way of life and receive their protection. So it's like, if you are going to live in the White Marks with the Ikuj elves, you just have to go by their culture. It's got meandering streets, communal longhouses being distinctly elven planned into the middle of Kibwe. Few people from outside the neighborhood cross through it, not really out of trepidation, but simply because it's not easy to get lost in these streets there. And the profusion of greenery that's within that part of the city. There are some small enclaves I will mention. I'll just go shortly into them, because these are basically smaller neighborhoods that kind of shift location, maybe sometimes disappear. North Station is a collection of buildings at the south end of the city, ironically. Around the shrine to Caden Kalen and the Walk of Shrines. They cater to Vastini visitors and are built in northern-style wood-shingled roofs. The Undermouth is an underground network of warrens and tunnels that larger than most residents realize, particularly the northern parts of it. Kobolds inhabit the tunnels, patrolling and setting up traps to keep intruders out while transacting business with the surface just as any other citizens. The bulk of the community once lived under Moonlight, from which this conclave got its name, Undermoth. But the Office Consortium drove them away, and the company basically took over the neighborhood, so now they live beneath White Marks and any neighborhoods that they can feel useful. And then Waterblock is the area around the city's northernmost well, which is claimed by a clan of stone giants. They tend the well for many generations, using engineering methods passed down through the ages to conserve the well and ensure anyone who approaches can use the water. The residents of Iusa Block are generally pleased to aid the giants when necessary, for the giants to be somber and decline to socialize. Their leader, Grindwheel, hasn't spoken a word in 3 decades. A few snow giants live elsewhere in Kibwe, but have distant family. And finally, of the smaller areas is Wall Shadow. A few buildings outside the wall are still deemed part of it, with the exception of the cluster of stone and wood structures southeast of the city. These buildings are the shadows of city walls, but the concealment doesn't bother the gnome residents. This sprawling clan migrated to Kibwe generations ago due to some curious bargain with First World powers. They couldn't live in the city, as they lived outside there, and served the Representative Council as scouts. They get along with Zenji tribes in the area, and often give the gnomes tips about dangerous monsters or unusual travelers to investigate. Get along there. So, now we know the city. Let's talk about a little history of the city. We did mention some things which are very interesting to deal with the city. But, yeah, we kind of have to look at where Kibwe comes from in a lot of ways. The thing is, the walls of the city are ancient. We don't know who constructed them. They predate the great people that created the city. Because Kibwe began as a trading post that predates the nation which kind of accepted it. Holy Zentramba. Basically, it was a small trading area within these walls that became connected with Holy Zentramba for when Holy Zentramba existed. Within the walls, whose construction, these ancient walls, by unknown builders, caravans from Eastern Grun can pass through the Middle Gap and swap cargoes with traders from the wild Mwangi Expanse. So from across the mountains, the Gap here. And remove the need for either party to venture too far into unfamiliar territory. People from the Gaps could come to Kibwe. People from the Expanse could come to Kibwe. They could trade their stuff, move back. Eventually, Holy Zentramba would fall to demons conjured by the rival Rasta, and the survivors fled to Kibwe. But yes, Kibwe was a trade post in this walled area of probably some other ancient city that no one knows about, that no one knows the exact history of, when all the walls survived. Also, natural resources were discovered nearby in Kibwe, which increased its power even more. Diamonds, gold, salt. It now had strategic advantage and any potential over nearby competition. And it did fight rivals in deadly battles over trading rights. And the local population grew. Free trade laws were established. That's the kind of building of the city of Kibwe. And so traders from all across Grund in the region come here now as this major trade hub between two halves of the continent. Yeah. Recently, of course, there are things that have happened, like people fleeing from Osaru. A lot more people have flooded into the city to increase it by 1,000 people, approximately, which has increased the dangers in the city. Other major events is actually the book that I mentioned with the slithering that happened. Basically, a magical curse happened in 4720, in which humans were transformed to oozes. There are some survivors of it. The entire thing was solved. The problem is gone. The slithering is done. But unfortunately, there are some people that still are affected by the slithering post. They survive. These people who are now the Oozmans exist in the city. They've been accepted as citizens still. They're relatively well treated in the city. But, you know, they have trouble finding things because they're part ooze now afterwards. And, you know, it's not that they are accepted in the city, but the problems with their bodies make it difficult for them to do a lot of the labor and stuff. There is a event that marks the anniversary of the slithering holiday that has started as in memory of those that died of the slithering. Granted, it does serve things like these little jellies and stuff, which there is this thing that, like, people outside the city feel like, isn't that kind of tone deaf on the people that have been turned into, like, these ooze-morph half-oozes? But even the people that have been changed kind of like the tradition of, like, eating little jellies and stuff and ooze-like foods. So, the people have expressed, like, you know, terrible event, been 4 years, they got a holiday that they've made to market, it's got some very, like, weird, ironic things, but the people that, like, went through it are like, we went through shit, we're weird ooze people now, we can kind of live with this, it kind of, you know, make fun of yourself to make you feel better about, like, your situation, I guess, kind of thing. It's an interesting effect that's afterwards, like, you know, yeah. But, hey, little, party afterwards. Major event. Let's talk about the people of the city. Because, again, there is this entire thing of there's people from all across Golarion. And, you know, you've got the people that have escaped from Saru, that from everything that happened there. Civic freedom is big here. That's very important. We talked about how, even though it used to be legal to transport slaves to the city and sell them to foreign buyers and things like that, that's why here had a very big presence. But post the time of the slivering, or maybe around the time of the slivering, as a result of it, it was the same nearly. The ruling council basically outlawed all forms of slavery. I get the feel I haven't read the slivering book. That's one of those I didn't really check deep into. I get the feeling that maybe Big Hero was involved in that, or did something that got involved in that. Just saying. But, yeah. The Big Hero block didn't really like that slave taking was completely gone. Well, slave taking was forbidden, and then slave selling is now forbidden, so slavery is completely gone. Yes, there's a lot of human ethnicities, elves, gnomes, giants, kobolds, lizard folks, patchwork of cultures and languages that are just as chaotic as the jungle itself. Foreigners, people that are coming in from the Screaming Jungle, like Okta, Ko, Alkenstar. It is a mess. And the Yankee Pavilion, a sacred space decorated with petals and shielded from the city by hides and tapestries, where there's courtships, dances, weddings, fertility rites, full on the full moon, and public debates going on. Yeah. A lot of stuff goes on in there. It's also interesting to see that the city itself is very busy, but busy on their own kind of schedule. It's one of those things that heat of the day, you know, does certainly keep people from working a lot of times. Basically, people set out in the morning for early shifts. So food vendors arrive very early to offer everyone a hearty breakfast. By midday, work slows down. It's a tropical climate. It's the middle of the day, unbearably hot. Even those hard-hearted employees realize that enforcing work in the middle of the day is futile. So a lot of Kibwe return to their homes around noon. Cool drink. Ice for the wealthy. Slip through the midday. Take a short nap. Do something leisurely. A little meal. And then, after the heat abates, get back to work. Where a lot of Kibwe returns to work in earnest, laboring for several more hours until dark. And then you return home to finish any daily chores you didn't do during the middle of the day. Yeah. During fall and winter, though, those sweltering afternoons are replaced by rain. So that's your spring and summer. Yeah. They're a little cooler, but very wetter. Only a little cooler, but very wetter. And so it's actually even more good reason to be indoors during those hours, because, you know, you don't want to get soaked. And most people return to work not because the day has cooled, but because the daily rains usually peter out to a light drizzle by mid-afternoon. So the rain is usually heaviest in the middle of the day. So for very similar reasons to during the months when it's hottest, the months where it's wettest, it's sort of like, well, we don't want to work during the heavy rains. When it's just light rain, then we'll work. And this is very different than a lot of outsiders would see. But granted, there are different groups. Miners can work around the clock, things like that. So different jobs have different schedules still. But this rhythm is something that a lot of foreign traders that come in aren't accustomed to. But yeah, but it's a town dominated by trade. And of course the farmhands that are there, the Senji and herders, are biggest contributors to the market. Grains, mixed meats, spices, especially ones that come from nearby, vegetables from varying neighborhoods. The gourmands basically have stuff that they combine food from every block in every region to create this like all of mixture of food from their entire city. And so the major people that are the cooks and gourmet people of Kibwe basically take a little bit of everything from all the different cultures that are there, all the different blocks and regions, to create these newer, exciting dishes and foods that are basically a mixture of Kibwe itself. There are a few holidays. Gatewatch Day is the largest. It involves visiting neighborhoods and exchanging gifts. There are the two main gates are, of course, north and west. It's customary to give presents to neighbors living in residence north and west. But traditionally, that the people of course, Strangleblock find offensive to the southeast western corner, or the southeastern corner, you know. So yeah. And of course, then there's the Slithering celebration with its jellied foods. But again, has widespread support, even though, you know, there are definitely people that are like, you know, would seem in poor taste. Parades are big, surprisingly common. They celebrate, encourage civic engagement, honor important achievements, celebrate local heroes, and provide opportunities to sell goods to passerbyers. They occur along the Walk of Shrines, most of these parades do, at the south of the city. Even if the parades don't have religious connotations. So keep that in mind. Alright. Let's talk about the governing council, the people in charge a little bit. Because we have to talk about those people in charge. Now, here are four of the major people that are currently on the governing council. But the governing council isn't just these four. So, this is something that was established in the early years, from the trading post. When it was expanding dramatically, we've got the influence of the, nearby nation, we've got, gold, diamonds, salt being found. Basically, there's a lot of things going on. And foreign consortiums, companies warring for the region in control of the diamond and gold mines. And, of course, outside investors, which could have torn the place apart. But the people of Kibwe basically decided to establish a representative government that exists today. Companies would have a voice in the representative council, so would each of the city's neighborhoods, and significant trade partners, and any other key groups representing permanent residents of the city. So even if you're not in a neighborhood, if you're a specific group within that neighborhood that seems to be a major group and need representation, you can have a voice in the council. The specific number of representatives, the groups that appoint them, have varied over the years. The number of representatives hovers between 20 to 40. Currently, there are 38 representatives. It makes council meetings lengthy and contentious. These are informal, they're public, and they occur in the Adgenki Pavilion. Anybody wins. The strength and structure of this council, and the key to its remarkable duration, is that groups can appoint a representative however they see fit, but any representative that makes decisions favoring their group over the best interest of the city as a whole is immediately ejected. And technically can be put to death, but that's usually isn't done. But technically they could be put to death. This enforces representatives to engage with other representatives to learn more about the city as a whole. The system has a weakness, as a canny representative can couch their own interest as benefiting the entire city with clever rhetoric. Basically, you can be like, yes, this entire thing that our group is going to be doing is going to benefit the entire city. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but if you present it that way, then you're like, it's benefiting me primarily, but it will benefit the city as a whole. But again, these representatives watch for justice. Other representatives watch for this kind of sleight of hand in the system, so it has rooted stable. factions sometimes form too. Things like the East Mwangi Mining Camp Company always votes the same way as the Miners Camp representative, but the groups are fractious enough that this coalition between the two don't line, because the Miners Camp really is any kind of run by the East Mwangi Mining Camp Company, but they are two different things, and so they have different representatives, and also they don't always work together. So, skilled orators are the most popular. Let's talk about our 4 here, which are some major members. Well, technically there's a 5th one here that I don't have a picture of. But, Ibanyanam Moonmei represents the Zenji Trading Alliance, is popular in looking out for the interests of all Zenjis. She's well-liked in the Mozimba, despite the fact that she isn't Mozimba's representative. Our first madam there, Bawalde Hubu. Darvin Estebar, Lord Magistrate of the East Mining Company, is a representative and well known for impassioned and well-reached speeches. He survived several public assassinations. Rumors say that they haven't been genuine, basically staged to make him appear touchable to genuine ones. Kosa Ek represents the White Mark neighborhood and speaks only rarely, with words echo with great gravitas and reasons that they do. Other representatives work hard, usually without sex, to get Kusa to back their position. So basically, represents a pretty big district. You know, they don't speak much, but when they do, you get it. And then finally, Masu Abwedoma. If I butcher any of these names, apologies. I'm not great at pronouncing this. Loudmouth Cleric of Abadar, who represents the free people of Kibwe. Those who aren't employed by any of the companies or organizations represented in the council. His specific bounds to his representatives are unclear even to himself, so he's kind of fickle in debates. Now, technically the council is only a small part of the government. The council deals with only matters that impact multiple factions with the city, and threats the city as a whole, or matters of trade. Functionally, that means that company business gets closer scrutiny from the council as companies' trade impact. But each neighborhood is free to make and enforce their own laws. Neighborhood enforcement thus varies significantly across the city. Things like the Brass Block, which is openly administered by the Axis Consortium. Muzimba has a representative council that looks like Kibwe's council on a smaller scale, and Strangle Block has pretty much no administration whatsoever. So we can see how the city is both chaos and order in a lot of ways. Yeah. There really isn't an exact order. But that's Kibwe. I hope you enjoyed exploring it with me today. It's an interesting city-state on the edge of the Mwangi Expanse on the eastern side, kind of connecting up 2 regions, and honestly speaking, a great place of adventure. Now, whether or not you go and play the adventure of the Slithering, deal with the aftermaths of that with your own way, or just use that as another place to look at information about the city, dive into it. Again, I have provided everything from all the books, but Kibwe is an interesting place. It's a melting pot of Garund, of the Mwangi Expanse, of nearby regions, of a lot of places throughout northern Garund especially. You know, people, especially because you're trading from the western area of Garund, which is the Expanse, into the eastern side, on that area, Alkenstar, Geb, Nex, and stuff, and the crossing of there, in the northern regions, and all that. It's this kind of connecting tissue of a lot of the regions in the area. And it makes it a very interesting place that combines together all these different cultures and all these different connections. And I enjoyed diving into it and learning all about it and talking to you. And I hope you did learn exploring Kibwe with me and you know it a little bit better. Anyway. Yeah, we'll leave that there. I hope you enjoyed today. I hope you enjoyed diving into it. If you want to see more of my stuff, remember to check out my schedule. It's up on my social media, Discord, Blue Sky, Twitter/X, and over on my community tab of my YouTube. Tells you when I'm going live on Twitch, whether it's gaming or tabletop related. That's scheduled a little bit more open-ended just because of life stuff. Check my social media. And then the YouTube stuff, which Only will change if there's something going on with the video, or a little bit more major in my real life, and then I readjust the schedule there, but that schedule's pretty exact. Make sure to check out my live plays. I've done some Pathfinder, going to do Pathfinder 2e, D&D, a lot of stuff, and discussing tabletop and segments. Okay, I think it's all my shoutouts that I have to do. I try to remember them all. Remember to like, subscribe, ring the bell. Hey, I said that at the beginning of the video, so now. What do you think about Kibwe? Have you done an adventure there like the Slithering, or would you be interested in doing that Slithering adventure, or a different adventure that's inspired by it? What kind of character would you want to do if you're doing it? Because it is such a melting pot of the Expanse. What does that inspire to be a person like from a specific region, a traveler outside of there? There's so much that could be done with this as a setting, as this melting pot, that I think it's a very interesting one that, you know, I'm curious as to what people think. Alright, I'm going to get going. I'm going to hang out with Chat a little bit more, maybe do some other stuff. Until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.